at the output situation of firms under perfect competition. Remember at the very beginning, in our very first lesson, the very first episode, I said that this topic theory of a firm is how to answer some 4 questions. It helps an entrepreneur to answer some 4 questions. What output should I produce? How much will it cost me to produce that output? At what price will I sell that output that I have produced? When I have produced that output at that cost and sell at that price, how much profit or loss will I be able to make? We want to answer those questions graphically under the output situation of a firm under perfect competition. Now, we will be dividing our situations, our output situations into 3. And the first one will be the short run profit maximizing output of a firm under perfect competition. In the short run, firms under perfect competition make abnormal profits. Why? Because they are low-cost firms. What do I mean by low-cost firms? In the short run, their equipment are still very efficient, they are new. In the short run, those firms may be optimally located. They may be located at a very strategic area. What do I mean by this? If the company or firm in question is a weight-gaining industry, like a drink-producing industry that adds liquid to maybe some chemical products to produce drinks and others, you will realize that those firms are best located towards the market outlet. That is what we call weight-gaining industries. Industries that their outputs are heavier than their input. So if those industries are located close to the market outlet, we say that they are optimally located. If it is a weight-losing industry, whose input is rather heavier than, or bulkier, or cumbersome to handle and transport than its output, such as a sugar factory, sugarcane is heavier than sugar produced already. It will be best for that industry to be located around its source of raw material. So when these industries are located like this, their cost of production will be mitigated. So that is one of the reasons why firms can be making profit in the short run. But the major reason why firms make profit in under perfect competition in the short run is because there are still relatively few of them in the industry. There are still a few number of them in the industry, and as a result, supply is not in excess of demand to cause prices to drop. So the prices are still relatively high enough to permit them make profit. Remember, we had a diagram. We said this is supply, this is the industry, and then this is the equilibrium price, equilibrium quantity, and then all firms are price takers. So in the short run, supply is equal to demand, and supply is relatively low. I said relatively, since there are still few of them in the industry, few individual firms in the industry, permitting them to sell at good prices so that they can be able to make profit. So those are the reasons why firms make profit in the short run. So how do you demonstrate that graphically? Simple. Let me just use this to show that this firm is making profit. Remember, under perfect competition, average revenue is equal to marginal revenue, which is the same as price. And the average revenue curve is the demand curve of the firm. We have output here. So, what are you supposed to do? The first thing is draw the average revenue curve as we've done. And then remember that the average revenue curve of this firm is the same as its marginal revenue. The next is draw its average cost curve, which is of course having a U shape. And the average cost curve of this firm should drop below average revenue. Why? Because we want to show that this firm is making profit. So the lowest point of average total cost should be below your average revenue. Like that. Average total cost, or you call it average cost. And then lastly, you bring in your marginal cost curve. Your marginal cost curve should always head across average total cost at its lowest point, which is called the technical optimum output. So this is it. Marginal cost should always get across average cost at its lowest point, which is the technical optimum output. The question now is, what output will this firm produce? We go back to those 4 initial questions. What output will this firm produce? How much will it cost that firm to produce the output? What price will the firm sell that output? How much profit or loss will the firm make? By the time we are done answering these 4 questions, we would have been done with this diagram. So let's start with the first. How much output should this firm produce? We said earlier on that the profit maximizing output of a firm is that output level when marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. So we will be looking here to see where marginal revenue and marginal cost are meeting. We can see that this is where they are meeting, here. This is the marginal revenue curve, marginal cost curve. They meet here. So we are able to determine our output by these meeting points of MR and MC. We bring down a straight line to the output axis, Q. So this is the output. We are done with that. The next, how much will it cost this firm to produce that output? The cost is simply determined by where this dotted line of output touches the average cost curve. This is it. This is where it touches average cost curve. We take it to the margin, relate it to the cost and revenue axis. This is cost and revenue axis, so that will be your C. Remember, we are getting it from where the dotted line of output, which originated from where MC met with MR. That is, we get it from there. When this dotted line touches the average total cost curve, then our cost is set. The next is, after determining cost, what price are we going to sell? What is the price at which we will sell our output cure? The price at which we sell the output cure will depend on where this dotted line touches the average revenue curve. Remember that average revenue is the same as price. That was on our second episode, our second lesson. We proved that average revenue is equal to price. So where this output touches the average revenue curve, that will be our price. So this is it. It touches A up here, then our price is set. The last question we should answer is, are we making profits or loss, and how much? Now, we can see that we know that profit is the difference between total revenue and total cost. So the total revenue that is made by this firm, permit me put X and Y here, not X and Y in maths, just letters to distinguish the meeting point. The total revenue of this firm is OPXQ. If you don't want to say OPXQ, you say the total revenue is OP times OQ, since we know that total revenue is price times output. While the total cost is OCYQ, or you say OC times OQ. Why are we saying OP times OQ or OC times OQ? In order to get total revenue and total cost. Because there is no total value here. All the values inside here, all these curves are either marginals or averages. So this price here is gotten from the average revenue curve. And average revenue means revenue generated from selling each unit of output. And then this C here is not gotten from the total cost curve. It is gotten from the average total cost curve. And average total cost means the cost spent on each unit of output. So if you want to know the total cost, you take the cost of each unit times the amount of output. That's why I'm saying that total cost here is OC times OQ, while total revenue is OP times OQ. Or you see total revenue is OPXQ, while total cost is OCYQ. So this is revenue and this is cost. So the proportion by how much revenue exceeds cost. You can see this is cost here, while this is revenue. The proportion or the amount by which revenue exceeds cost gives you your profit. So this rectangle here, CPXY, represents your profit. This shaded region, that is the profit that the firm is maximizing. Profit. How do we know that it is profit and not loss? It is profit because price is greater than cost at the output kilo. If we rather had cost greater than price at this output, we would have said that this firm is making a loss. That this would have been the loss minimizing output. So that is how you determine the situation in the short run. Let's look at the long run situation where the firm is breaking even. So we are done seeing the profit maximizing output situation of a firm under perfect competition. What happens then in the long run? After that firm makes profit in the short run, how does that profit? Does it remain the same? Does it continue to make profit? Does the firm continue to make profit in the long run? And what do we mean by the long run? A long run situation is that period of time in the business's life cycle where variable factors of production remain variable and fixed factors of production become variable. That is, those fixed factors of production like machines, buildings, which we said we had spent on them just once, we need to spend again on them either to replace them because of depreciation. So if you bought a car or a machine for 5 million francs, and then in the long run period you need to replace the car by buying another one for 5 million francs because the first one has depreciated, the total expenses on machines or cars will now be 10 million. It would have changed from 5 to 10 million. That means that what your fixed cost has become variable. That shows that you are now in the long run period of the business. Just to make you understand that the long run period of businesses vary according to the type of fixed factors of production or fixed assets that the businesses use. Now in the long run period, all the profits that this firm made in the short run would have been competed away. It would have been wiped away because potential investors that saw the abnormal profits that were made in the short run, as we just saw, will be attracted to this business. And remember, we made mention of the fact that one of the prominent characteristics of firms under perfect competition is that there is free entry and exit. No barriers to entry. If you have the capital, you are willing to do the business, you are free to join. So, as a result of that, the total supply of the industry by firms in that industry will exceed demand. And when supply exceeds demand, prices are bound to fall. Remember that firms under perfect competition again are price takers. They will just have to accept the low price. Remember that as prices are falling, their cost of production has not changed. So their abnormal profits which were made in the short run will be wiped away, leaving them only with what we call normal profit or break-even profit. These are firms that we call the marginal firms. Firms that are sub-optimally located. They are not located in their best area. Depreciation has started affecting them. Their cost of production has begun to rise, such that they now are unable to make as much profit as they could make in the short run. And this is how we illustrate diagrammatically. Okay, so let us see how the break-even situation of a firm is demonstrated. You have the output, we have cost or revenue. This is cost or revenue here. And then, since we said that the short-run profits attracted many firms into the industry, and so the industry supply curve has increased, causing equilibrium prices to fall, we are going to step down our average revenue curve, not to be midway again. We'll step it down to be somewhere down there. Average revenue, which is the same as marginal revenue, the same as the price. Alright? So, this average revenue curve now falls below our average cost curve. Like that. So, the average revenue curve becomes tangential to the average cost curve, such that the lowest point of the average cost curve is touching the average revenue curve. It doesn't drop below it again, neither is it suspended above. And then we draw the last curve, which is the marginal cost curve, which always begins from below the marginal revenue curve. Remember, this is MR and AR. So, and it always cuts across average cost curve at its lowest point. Like that. Marginal cost. Marginal cost. So we go back to our 4 questions. What outputs will this firm produce? We said to determine the output, look for where MR meets with MC. Many students are fond of thinking that the profit maximizing output situation or position should be the lowest point of average cost. That is wrong. We don't choose the output from where average cost is lowest. We choose it from where MR is equal to MC. So this is our MC and this is our MR. So let's see where they meet. Coincidentally, they meet at that point where MR AC is lowest, but it is a coincidence.